President Trump just dropped the nuclear option on America's closest neighbor. After he got word of Mark Carney's backroom deal with China, after Carney took some swipes at Trump at the World Economic Forum, Trump just made an announcement that means nothing short of total economic annihilation for the 51st state. And what Carney did in response is making him the latest laughingstock on the international stage. Wait until you see this. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, celebrating yet another day in Trump's golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Just days ago, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney flew to Beijing and sat down with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Within hours, Canada announced a landmark trade deal with China. The deal involves slashing Canadian tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles from 100% down to just 6%, a 94% reduction. In exchange, China agreed to reduce tariffs on Canadian canola oil from 85% down to 15%. So Canada gets to sell more vegetable oil, while China gets a back door into the North American auto market. And here's the kicker. Under this deal, 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles will flood into Canada this year alone, with that number rising to 70,000 within 5 years. Half of those have to be affordable EVs under 35,000 Canadian dollars, which means flooding North America with Chinese government subsidized vehicles designed to undercut American manufacturers. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent laid out the problem perfectly yesterday on ABC's This Week.
Some industry-specific tariffs on Chinese goods, and we have a highly integrated market with Canada, sometimes in autos, which he dropped the EV tariff, I believe, from 100% to 6%. The goods can cross the border during the manufacturing process 6 times, and we can't let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the U.S. We have a USMCA agreement, but based on that, which is going to be renegotiated this summer, and I'm not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here, other than trying to virtue signal to his globalist friends at Davos. I don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people.
Now remember, it was just literally months ago when Canada joined the United States in imposing those 100% steel tariffs on China because Beijing was dumping cheap products and deliberately trying to undercut North American manufacturing. So Bessent called Carney's reversal an about face and said he's not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here other than just trying to virtue signal for his globalist friends over at Davos. But it gets worse. When Carney announced this China deal, he didn't frame it as a temporary trade adjustment. He actually said this.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Now, whether he actually meant that in the demons of Davos kind of sense, this new world order, abolishing national sovereignty, controlling populations through surveillance and economic manipulation, establishing a centralized authoritarian world government, the very characteristics we think of when we hear that term new world order. Whether or not that's what he meant, who's to say? But it was clearly not the best choice of words, to put it bluntly. Regardless, then Carney flew to Davos, the annual gathering of globalist elites, after the Chinese deal was reached, and he delivered a speech that read like a Declaration of Independence from the United States. So standing before the world's billionaires and bureaucrats, Carney announced that the old liberal international order is not coming back. He warned that we're not living through a rupture, but rather this is a transition. And he accused the United States of using economic integration as a weapon. And he called for middle powers like Canada to unite because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. Nice choice of words there. Now, Carney never mentioned President Trump by name, but everyone in that room knew exactly who he was referring to, who he was talking about. This was a direct shot at America first. This was Canada's globalist prime minister telling Europe, China, and every other nation that they needed to band together to resist this new American leadership in a rising civilizationalist world. Needless to say, President Trump didn't wait long to respond, and what he posted on Truth Social is going to absolutely blow you away. Bombshell revelations are ripping the mask off deep state corruption. Venezuela's ex-intelligence chief just exposed Maduro's narco-terror empire tied to China, Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah, and named corrupt U.S. politicians and officials who allegedly took millions to keep the regime alive. Those same dishonest forces are also sabotaging our financial system right here at home, draining your retirement savings to fund their globalist agenda. President Trump is leading the fight back, building a strategic Bitcoin reserve and opening retirement accounts to crypto. Follow his lead. Move your wealth into crypto assets like Block Trust IRA. Their Animus AI platform has outperformed Bitcoin by 250% since 2020, providing essential wealth defense against the deep state's thieving tentacles. Go to turleytalkscrypto.com right now and get a free $2,500 funding bonus when you open your account. That's turleytalkscrypto.com to secure your family's future today. On January 24th, President Trump issued a stark warning on Truth Social. Quote, if Governor Carney, yes, governor, not prime minister, if Governor Carney thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States, he is sorely mistaken. China will eat Canada alive, completely devour it, including the destruction of their businesses, social fabric, and general way of life. If Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. But Trump didn't stop there. Just days after Carney's Davos speech, the president did something unprecedented. He revoked Canada's invitation to his Board of Peace. So this is Trump's international body made up of over 30 nations designed to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza and mediate global conflicts around the world. Some are calling it a rival to the United Nations. Trump posted a formal letter disinviting Carney from the board. So this 30-plus nations on the Board of Peace there excludes Canada because of their governor and prime minister, right? In other words, you're fired. Mark Carney, you're fired. You're fired and you're demoted from prime minister to governor. You're no better than Tim Walz. And that's because for Trump, bottom line, the moment you pit yourself against American renewal, you're an enemy, regardless of who you are. Trump will negotiate, he'll make deals, but the moment you start talking about dismantling American power and cozying up to communist China as part of some globalist master plan, that's it. That's when the hammer comes down, and that is quite the hammer. Canada and the United States share the largest trade relationship in the world. $3.3 billion in goods and services cross that border every single day. 75% of Canada's exports come to the United States as compared to only about 3% of ours. And so guess what Carney ended up doing after that Truth Social post? With 75% of their exports possibly getting tariffed by 100%, guess what he did? He blinked. He backtracked. He completely backpedaled. By Sunday, a chastened Carney was forced to, quote, clarify to reporters that Canada has, quote, no intention of pursuing a free trade deal with China. He insisted the agreement would be entirely consistent with USMCA obligations, and he claimed that he was merely rectifying issues that developed in recent years, a complete retreat from his bravado just days before at Davos. I mean, this is beyond hilarious. One Truth Social post. One. And this failed embarrassment of a governor throws China under the bus, and completely backpedals on the entire agreement. That, my friends, is what's called great power politics. That's a great power reminding a not so great power, what Carney calls middle power, of its total dependence economically and militaristically on relations with that great power. And you had better learn that this great power controls this hemisphere, and we will not tolerate any peer competitor within this sphere, especially in the guise of China. Carney learned that lesson the hard way this weekend. What Governor Carney found out was that Trump wasn't just protecting the U.S. auto industry. He was drawing a red line against the very new world order that Carney had invoked. When globalist leaders stand up at Davos and declare that the old order is not coming back and that they needed to be cozying up to powers like China to push back against the rise of the United States as a civilization state, Trump heard that loud and clear. And he taught Carney and everyone at Davos that America is playing for keeps in this new civilizationalist order. And not only will we not allow a peer competitor in our hemisphere, but you no longer get to live rent-free off the economic and militaristic might of the American citizens. Those days are indeed over. A new American civilizationalism is rising. And God help Canada in such an age, because as long as they have the likes of Mark Carney as their prime minister, their governor, they're going to need all the help they can get. Hey there, Turley Talks family. Dr. Steve here. I'm coming to Dover, Delaware on Saturday, February 21st for the 2026 Lincoln Day dinner, and I want to see you there. Bring your books, bring your family, bring your friends. We'll have cocktails at 6 p.m. My keynote is at 7 p.m., and I have a dedicated spot for book signing. Tickets are $100, but they're pre-sale only. No tickets at the door. Scan the QR code to register. Let's celebrate this movement together.